Greetings, my name is Boone Zavik and I'm the Vice President and Marketing Manager of Immuno Laboratories. Today, in sharing my Bloodprint journey, I'm going to be talking about a lot of what I've learned in regards to having a food sensitivity to wheat versus a gluten sensitivity, or rather a gliadin sensitivity, and then also what is celiac disease and how does that relate in our testing. So I'm going to walk through those three areas and just educate a bit more about what is wheat, what is gluten, what is gliadin, and then also what is celiac disease and how does our testing help pinpoint those different stages. So for myself personally, as I did our testing, I found out that I had an issue to wheat. So this issue was found on our Bloodprint test. And I personally did our Bloodprint 154. So that tests for 154 different items. I wanted to see the largest gamut of foods, mainly so I could share with everyone about everything that I had an issue with. So I did the Bloodprint 154. I came up reactive to wheat. So that is going to be looking at a IgG. So that's an immunoglobulin G, which is part of your immune system. It's looking at that delayed reaction, okay? So that's what I had an issue with. Now, when you look at wheat, wheat is going to be that item that essentially looks like these pieces of kind of grass. And I guess a bigger picture of this kind of looks like this grass like this. So it's kind of this grass with these sort of seeds on them, these grains on them, and in that specific seed or that grain is what we are going to dissect here. So this is a crude drawing of a wheat grain. So what we have in the different parts is this part is the bran. This part is the endosperm. And this little dot here, that part is called the germ. Now, we're going to be focusing most on the endosperm because within this endosperm area, right, in this whole area here, which is the vast majority of the wheat grain, that is where we have something called gluten, okay? So now with gluten, gluten will be found in the endosperm. So when you come up reactive to wheat or a gluten-containing grain on the Bloodprint test, we can then dive deeper and find out, is it wheat, this entire grain, and all the unique items in it that you have an issue with, or are you coming up reactive to wheat because you have an issue with gluten? Now, gluten has two parts to it, and the part that I'm going to focus on is gliadin. The other part of gluten is called, and I'm not sure if I have the spelling of it right, but I believe it is called glutenin. Glutenin is usually what you find in rice. And rice is mainly thought to be hypoallergenic, meaning most people won't react to rice. I can tell you in our data that rice is a less likely to be an inflammatory reactive food than many other foods, but potentially someone could have an issue with it. But sticking on this point of wheat, gluten, gliadin, gliadin comprises majority of gluten. When you're looking at that structure itself, majority is going to be gliadin. Now, how we step through this is if you come up reactive to wheat on the Bloodprint test, we can then run our anti-gliadin test, which what we will be testing you for is we'll be doing an IgG and an IgA. So let me just write these a little bit better. So when we do our anti-gliadin test, we'll be seeing, do you have a reaction to IgG and IgA, immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin A? That is just another part of your immune system. So just as we have G and we have E, we also have A. So we'll test on both those areas to see if your body is having a reaction to gliadin. Now, if potentially you do have really serious reactions to gliadin, that's where we can take this one step further and find out if you have an issue that is celiac disease. Now with celiac disease, the gold standard in testing, the best way in a testing environment to find out if you have an issue with celiacs is that as long as you have been exposed to gluten, we can run a TTG test. The TTG test stands for tissue transglutaminase test. We're essentially finding out, is your body able to process and handle gluten containing grains, is able to handle gluten and process it. If not, then you have celiac disease and you have to avoid all gluten containing grains. Potentially you will more than likely fall in one of these areas. And what I mean by that is you'll find out that you have a food sensitivity reaction to a gluten containing grain, or you'll find that you have a sensitivity to gluten, or rather gliadin. It's only, if I remember correctly, it's only 1%, so very, very small. Only 1% of the population, I believe is actually the US population, have celiac disease. So a lot of times it does go undiagnosed, but it's still a very small number. So what we recommend at Immuno Laboratories is first, get your Bloodprint test, find out the map of the foods that you should be eating, and then also the foods you want to stay away from. Just as our lady here is kicking those foods away, you want to know exactly what foods you want to stay away from. And then we can also find out, based on what things you're reactive to, is it gluten that you're having a reaction to, or is it just simply that grain itself? Another example of how we can step through and give more information as you go if needed is with egg. So if you come up reactive to egg, fortunately I did not come up reactive to egg, but it is in our top 10 most inflammatory foods. So if you are reactive to egg, we can then dissect and find out, is it egg yolk that you have an issue with, or is it the egg white that you have an issue with? And then we can help you open or close more foods so that you can make sure that you're avoiding everything that item contains. Because sometimes, and actually often, someone will come up reactive to the egg yolk. So they can still have egg white omelets, or they could still have egg whites in the morning. So it still allows them in a lifestyle perspective to easily kind of keep moving forward. But if they find out that they have egg white, well, that then starts to eliminate a lot of different foods. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is the next video we have in the Bloodprint series. Also next week, I'll be meeting with Kinsey again, and we're going to be talking about gut health in general. I want to educate people about what to do, aside from simply staying away from these various foods. What else can you do? What else can you do to have a proper and healthy gut? So I'll be meeting with Kinsey, I believe it's next week, and then we'll be sharing that video here. Once again, please, if you know someone that has an issue with wheat, or if they're gluten-free, tag them in this video. Let them better understand the different parts of the wheat, grain, the endosperm, how this relates into gluten, that there's gluten that has gluten in and also has gliadin. I just want people to be better educated about all of this. I remember seeing a funny talk show not too long ago. I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or maybe Jimmy Fallon, that went onto the streets and asked people what gluten is, and majority of people had no idea. They just knew that you shouldn't eat it. It all depends if you should or shouldn't eat it. But anyways, tag a friend. Let's share this education. Let's allow more people to understand, either why they should continue to avoid gluten, where it can be, and what this process is of having a reaction to wheat versus gluten versus potentially having celiacs. Thank you so much.